Alright, so tinker time. It's been a couple of weeks since the last video. I'm going to try to look at the camera more than over there at the preview. And yeah, it's hot. It's still hot. I'd point out how hot it is, but my fingers are busy because I remembered the peach tea this time. So, what are we working on today? No weird intro this time. Actually, yeah, no weird intro this time. Let me flip the camera around and show you what's going on. Alright, so some of you will remember that the other day, actually 2 weeks ago, I replaced struts and springs on the rear of my 2003 Thunderbird. And while we were in there, we noticed that our tie rod ends are garbage, as is our sway bar end links are garbage, and our tie rods are pretty lunched too, especially the Heim joint here. The problem I have is I gained over 2 inches of ride height back replacing the springs. However, I'm still cambered out a little bit. Not as bad as before, but I'm still cambered out. Now, I'm going to share with you a method I learned, and it's technically ballparking it, which is better than where I'm at.
Okay, so I took a pause here because I need to explain a few things. The original clip was much longer. I had to stop because what followed didn't make any sense, and in hindsight I was able to catch my mistakes. So what you're about to see is how I ballparked the measurements prior to an alignment. I just wanted to make sure that that was very clear before we moved on.
A few moments later.
Okay, so here we are, and this is the old one, this is the new one, obviously. The adjuster's on the opposite side, whatever, not a big deal. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to take our tape measure, if I can get it out. And then measure it from, we're going to measure it from the end of the stud, like that, to the center eyelet hole, there, right?
Okay, so another pause and a little bit more hindsight. This is where I came to realize that I did the measurements slightly wrong, which the next clip will correct, and listen to the reviewers of the products you buy, because I ran into the exact same problem that everyone else did, which is why there was a week-long gap between this clip and the one that's about to follow it. Great.
1 week later.
Well, here I am, back again, a week later, and as you can see, I got a new tie rod, because the old one, like everyone said in the reviews, was too long. Fully adjusted in, it was too long. So, what we're going to do now is fix my faux pas. Sorry, my phone's jiggling. Here we go. And when I measured it the first time, I went from stem to the center line of the bolt hole, and that's no good because these little mounting collars here, that's where you have to measure from, because some of them are thicker than others, as you can see. So what I did was I measured from this collar all the way to the center hole, and it came out to 20 5/8 inches on the driver's side. It should be the same on the passenger side. Also, as I discovered, this will not fix camber. This only fixes toe. Toe? Yeah, toe. So it's not going to fix my camber, but the more I drive the car and the more I check the wear pattern on the tires, I think my camber is actually a bit of an optical illusion. So, I mean, if you change your controller arms, or your bushings are good, and you change your struts, and you change your springs, then your camber should be okay unless you have something physically bent up here, which I don't. Subframe's good, those mounts are good. I could use a ball joint here, so I'll probably change the upper later. And then the lower is 3 bushings, and those all seem pretty good. So 20 and 5/8, I'm gonna take the adjuster out and then thread that out until it matches, and then lock this bolt down and bolt that side together, and hopefully have this put back together before it gets too hot. I actually have another premiere coming out in about 40 minutes, so I was hoping I'd get it done before the audience wonders where the heck I'm at. All right, sit tight, I'll get it back together. I mean, I'll show you the one side, but the other side's the same, so we'll just do the one side and we'll wrap this one up.
Okay, so here's what happened. My camber is still slightly off. I did match the original measurement of the tie rod, and yet my toe is still slightly off. So, as I did the test drive, I did hear a little bit of squealing, meaning that the tire was either towed in or out, like it was turning slightly. It didn't affect the drivability too much, but I am slightly off. So this is where I would recommend to you, ballpark it, and then go straight to an alignment shop as soon as time warrants, because they have to really dial it in. I'm not really sure what's causing my camber issue, because now I have new springs, struts, tie rods, and end links, and the only things left are the upper and lower controller arms, which the bushings are good. So I guess a camber kit is in my near future, seeing as how I have 0 bends or flexes or damage to the frame or the body where the subframe bolts to. I guess that's just the way it works.
More moments later.
Alright, let me get you in here real quick. Used a second jack because I wanted to take tension off the spring and make this tie rod a little bit more level, so that way I didn't have to pivot this ball or this heim joint too much, because I was trying the old beat it into place thing with the arm all the way down. That just wasn't happening. So jacked up the controller arm up till it was a little bit more level, and the bolt literally just fell right in, which is the way it should be. I did this with that nut on the other end completely out, so that way the tie rod can move in and out freely. And then bolted that down, 13 on top, 15 on bottom. That was 20 and 5/8? Well, look back a few minutes. I told you the measurement. I know it's 5/8 too, 20 or, I think it's 20 or 5/8, but just look back. And then put that nut in. Now when I took it off, this joint was screwed on the old one. So I held a 18 millimeter there, and I used a 8 millimeter on the nut on the end of that threaded rod, and just turned it until the bolt came, or until the nut came off. You can't do that when you reattach them, because you'll start turning that tie rod on this end, and all your adjustment would be for nothing. So I immediately stopped what I was doing, cinched it back down. That is blue Loctited, that lock nut, but I was moving that end, so it wanted to go for a ride. So I spun it back in until it bumped up against that tie rod end again, or that lock nut again. We're good and tight there. And then just run the 18 millimeter nut, because by the time you cinch that down, that stud ain't moving anyway. Not really, barely. So I torqued that down, and now she's all in. And if you look here, the caster of the toe looks pretty good. Camber still looks a bit off, but I got the wheel jacked up, so I'll wait till I get the ride back on it. And while I'm in here, this is going to be one of those while you're in there. As you might remember, older video, I did the strut and the spring, and the end links for the sway bar. So I'm just going to go ahead and make sure all those are still tight, because you don't want to hear clunking going down the road, because that would be bad. So anyway, I'm going to get this all buttoned up, go over to the other side, now that I learned how to do it on this side, because I did make a boo-boo, but I fixed it, and that should wrap it up. As far as the number of Samuels this job is, just the tie rod ends and these end links and tie rod ends, this is really more like a 2 Samuel L. job, maybe not even 2, maybe just a 1. Let's just say 2 because I had to send back for this part here. I'll give you the part number for this in the description below. That way you get the right one for your Thunderbird, LS, or Jag S type. Anyway, that should wrap it up. Well, thank you all for watching. Maybe hit like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you on the next Tinker video, or Penny Arcade, or whatever else tickles my fancy. Later.